Have you ever bought something, felt excited for 5 minutes, and then never used it? The planner you never opened, the course you never started, the kitchen gadget still in the box. It's not laziness. Psychology says you weren't buying the product. You were buying a version of yourself. Impulse purchases aren't always about poor discipline. They're often about identity, emotion, and a brain wired to chase possibility. Let's break down why we buy things we never intended to use, and what's really happening in your mind when you click Add to Cart. Buying your ideal self. When you buy a fitness program, you're not buying workouts. You're buying the future version of you who wakes up early and feels confident. When you buy books, planners, or productivity tools, you're buying the organized, disciplined version of yourself. Psychologists call this the ideal self bias. Your brain gets a dopamine hit from imagining improvement. The purchase feels like progress, even before you've done anything. Brain loves anticipation. Here's the part most people miss. Dopamine spikes more in anticipation than in ownership. Scrolling, browsing, comparing, imagining how life will improve. That's where the reward system lights up. Once the item arrives, the excitement drops. The brain already collected its reward during the fantasy stage. So the object sits unused, because the emotional payoff already happened. Emotional spending feels like control. Stress, boredom, loneliness, insecurity. These emotions create discomfort. Buying something creates instant movement. It feels decisive. It feels hopeful. It feels like control. For a moment, you're not stuck, you're improving. But when emotion passes, so does the urgency to use what you bought. The product was never the goal. Relief was. The truth. You don't buy and use things because you're irresponsible. You buy them because your brain is wired to chase. Possibility, identity upgrades, emotional relief, anticipated reward. The cart represents who you could become. The unused item represents the gap between fantasy and behavior. And that gap, that's where awareness changes everything. When you recognize the emotional trigger behind the purchase, you interrupt the cycle, not by shaming yourself, but by understanding yourself. If this made you rethink your last impulse purchase, subscribe to the Human Circle. We break down the psychology behind everyday behaviors you thought were just bad habits. The next video might explain something you've been blaming yourself for.